This is Scott Griffith from Griffith Realty with our podcast, Land and Legacy, with my sister Carol. And today our special guest is the fire chief of the Brighton Fire Authority, Michael O'Brien. And Michael, welcome. We're really glad to have you on our podcast. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You bet. You bet. As we've talked about, fires, everybody's concerned about fire protection and how it works. And we're really proud of our community. We've really had quite an evolution over the years, going from independent fire departments to having an authority that's now supported by our tax dollars in a community sort of way, a more regional way. So why don't we go through some of the basics, since people, they know the fire trucks come, but they don't know how this all works. So why don't you explain how the authority works?
You know, a fire chief many years ago said, when your house is on fire, nobody cares what name is on the side of the fire truck. They just want it there fast, right? The fire authority, I like to say Brighton's fire authority is probably the most successful in the state of Michigan.
Really? Yeah.
We were formed in 1999 in a real early attempt to merge municipal services. So it was the city of Brighton, and they covered about half of Genoa, what we know as Genoa Township, and then Brighton Township. So there were 3 fire stations back in the late 90s. They came together under one chief, Larry Lane. Yeah. And at that point, predominantly all of our firefighters were paid on call, and the fire chief and the fire inspector were full-time. So it really was with an early attempt to start to share some of those large capital resources. I mean, fire departments are not cheap to run nowadays. No. New fire engines are $750,000. Take us about 2 years to build nowadays. And so it's very cost expensive. And so it's not necessarily the number of fire trucks, but when you need an extra one, so if one breaks, you have one that can go in service.
Sure.
So that's where the fire authority really starts to leverage this global, where's the best place to place fire stations within all of the geography. So we cover about 72 square miles. We're now working out of 5 fire stations and cover all of Genoa Township. And so when you really start to look at the area, it's the growing area of Livingston County in many ways, right?
It's the real epicenter of the way it's been growing out.
Yeah, for sure. And we've gone to, today we have 6 people on duty at our fire stations. And the rest are supplemented by paid on call or volunteers. And so, if you think about the traditional days of the bell ringing way back, it's a lot more sophisticated nowadays, but we still have people that come from home and drive and go to incidents. So the fire authority's funded through a millage dedicated across the entire district. And so that's both operating and capital. And the voters approved a capital millage about 4 years ago for us. And if you really look at what was happening within Brighton and our fire stations, our run volume is going up. We need more firefighters on duty, and we just really didn't have a place for them to work. Okay. We had the place for the fire stations and maybe some restroom facilities, but we didn't have the things for them to support them. And so back a couple of years ago, Genoa Township sold or transferred the ownership of the 2 stations, one on Door Road, one on Chilson, to the Fire Authority. So we own those. And then we did a major renovation on our Door Road station, in which about 3 years ago, we turned the switch on to staff it 24 hours a day.
Oh, okay.
And so, since we've had 24-hour coverage on, we've really seen a reduction in our response times. Nice. And every time we staff another station, we see our response times go down about a minute on average, which is, it goes back to that original part, right?
And I know it's very sophisticated because, I have one of those apps where you can listen to fire runs once in a great while, and you'll hear them, when somebody goes out of a run, they have people have to go cover stations, so you don't have one station completely empty and now there's no fire coverage for some section of the county. So it's fascinating how you guys have to deal with all that.
Yeah, so. And in Livingston County is a little bit more complicated in many ways than, especially if you came here from Oakland County, Wayne County, you're used to having fire hydrants near your homes.
That's true.
And only about a third of our district, right? The city of Brighton, edges of Brighton and Genoa are covered with hydrants. So a lot of times when you see us on incident responses, there's a lot more fire trucks than you're used to. Well, part of it is because we have to bring the water to extinguish that fire. But, if you really look at what our staff are doing on a daily basis, we have amazing staff at the Fire Authority, both full-time, part-time. We're really working to not go on calls, if that makes anything, right? So our engine companies are out doing inspections. They're doing public education events, really to try to keep that education very high. About last year in 2022, we were 60% of our incidents were medical related. So that could be anything car accidents to high priority medical calls that we go on to assist Livingston County EMS. And then the rest of the time it's fires, and fire alarms, those types
So
of
because you
things.
said runs are up, so is that
Yeah.
part of what the runs are up about? Or, I mean, so they're not just fire calls, it's all the emergency calls and
Yeah.
making more runs, is that it?
Yeah, there's no doubt. So COVID years, our freeway traffic was pretty light.
Thank goodness,
And so we didn't have as many car accidents over those years. So we're now returning back to those pre-COVID numbers in car accidents, but there's more population living in the area, more businesses open, and all of that activity drives, incident responses up for us. And really, when you start to look at that whole collective picture of what keeps our staff busy, as the EMS side gets busier, if they're out of ambulances or a tight response, it puts more pressure on our staff to respond.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. So the staff now is how many again?
Yeah, so we have a total, we're just under about 90 total firefighters in operations, and that's a mix of part-time, full-time. We have about 19 total full-time staff. So right today we have 6 people on duty right now.
Sure.
Out of that 6, 4 are full-time, 2 are paid on-call part-time. So they'll work shifts, they might work overnight. And you'll always see, we go through these hiring spurts. So the fire authority is,
Everybody does just right now.
Yeah.
So
and ours is further complicated because it's not just 18, 19-year-olds wanting to be firefighters. We have doctors and engineers and all these crazy things that come and work for us. But we got to train them how to be firefighters
I was going to say, the
first.
thing I know is that the training for firefighters has changed dramatically.
Yeah.
It's no longer a guy shows up because he wants to work hard and spray water. It's because nowadays they have all these certifications. Most of them have EMS training. I mean, it's amazing what I hear about your people. So yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we run 2 fire academies every year. We have the Howell High School Fire Academy that's through Howell High Schools in the intermediate school district. So our juniors and incoming seniors can take their first 2 hours of the day, doesn't matter what school they go to, Brighton, Howell. We house that at our Door Road station. So if you ever drive by it and you're like, what's going on? We're training the world's future firefighters there, which is
a great program.
That's cool.
That's
yeah,
a great
what a neat
program.
thing.
Yeah. And it is,
Exposed.
it's done so many good things. And every, I won't say, every couple months, right, one of those candidates, we're 10 years now. And so some of these are getting promoted. Some of these firefighters are getting promoted into first-line leadership, and we're seeing it. Tom, our instructor, who's long time running, that's retiring, so we're going to have a change of instructors here. But he's done a phenomenal job.
No, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's a great program.
Well, everybody's worried about safety and so forth. So has it gotten more complicated? Is there more house fires? Is that because of more, or is it about the same and it's just different kinds? I mean, what's the common cause of a fire? And that'll probably answer a lot of the questions, right?
So common cause for us varies. I mean, there's no doubt that cooking relates a lot of incidents for us.
Sure.
So whether it's a burnt pot, whether it's just a cooking fire, always puts us into a pretty high demand.
Sure.
Brighton Fire, for probably as long as we've been in existence, have had a smoke alarm program. And about 13 years ago, we changed to where we don't only just make sure we give you smoke alarms, we actually put them in. And that came through a grant program. So a little unknown fact, right, is Brighton Fire's probably installed more smoke alarms than any other community in the state. Grand Rapids and Detroit are ahead of us, but that's just sheer volume. Right?
So Carol and I can share a personal story that my parents had my dad's hard of hearing, and at one point he was testing the smoke alarms at our house, and my mom came in and asked him what the heck he was doing, and he couldn't believe that he'd replaced 3 batteries and every one of them were dead because he'd pushed a button and nothing happened. Well, he couldn't hear them because they were the wrong level. My mom's going nuts because he's pushing this button. So they decided they needed a strobe, and before it was over, the fire department was gracious and let them have a shaker for their bed. So when their alarm goes off now, sadly they're now in assisted living, but before that they were able to sleep safely, and if the bed was shaken, it meant they better get the heck out. And that's courtesy of the Brighton Fire Authority overseeing the whole thing. So we thank you very much.
That was a neat
That's
program.
very nice.
Yeah.
And that doesn't end, right, for us. And that's a kind of a mission because we can't stop all house fires, but the last thing our crews want to go to is see somebody trapped, somebody hurt.
Sure.
And so that advocacy has really helped us out immensely in keeping our fires small, right? So if we get alerted to them earlier, they're going to be smaller. Because if you call 911 faster, we're going to get there. So there's no doubt for us that house fires, we're seeing a lot of that common. No doubt that batteries are making some kind of impact in our life.
Sure.
And so charging related incidents are on the rise just generically, and we see it. It may be somebody charging a battery pack for a DeWalt or a cordless drill. It could be an overcharge issue with maybe a kid's toy or a scooter or a bike. And so there's a big push for us to keep learning what's the best practices in there and how do we educate our public, because fires are so devastating. We see it all the time,
sure.
Right? And we have a true passion to not let that continue. And so whatever we can do to continue to advocate to keep those responses low.
Nice.
Because, right, people have beautiful homes, they have beautiful lives, and we just see it far too often just how devastating a small fire can be, let alone.
And I mean, I know you know this, but I mean, I can't get over how much even a small fire with the water damage causes such a great loss for somebody. You know, it's just, it's unavoidable, but it's there.
And just look around your house. It's filled with plastics, right?
Sure.
Your couch is packaged gasoline, right? When you look at foam insulation, that's what it is. It's a petroleum product. And it creates very intense fires very fast. And so our advocacy for like smoke alarms comes from, we get to a state called flashover faster than we ever had. So part of your question is, are fires bigger? Well, they inherently move faster because of our home construction and what we put in our homes than what probably our grandparents' homes were. And so we're always kind of fighting how fast fire's moving. And so, right, if we can get people out and our folks can really train hard to get quick application of water, then we can hopefully reduce that impact in the long run.
So switching gears a little bit, so commercial fires are different in the sense of just the type of structures. Maybe they're empty, but you have a very thorough at least yearly, I know the fire department comes by, checks ours, just make sure we have the things that are appropriate for safety. Does that really reduce commercial, or is commercial sort of the same? It's just, how does it change that? So
commercial firefighting is always going to magnify our response, right? So it requires a lot more resources when we do get an event, whether it's a smoke in a building to a fire. And so our inspectors are always out working, and we use a combination. We have full-time fire inspectors and a fire marshal who really handle our high hazard occupancies and maybe our high occupancy, so things where a lot of people are in a building. And so they're always handling those. And then one of the things that we really do that some fire departments do and some don't is our engine companies, our on-duty staff, will be the ones, we train them as inspectors. So they're cross-trained, dual-rolled in a lot of functions. They're not just EMTs, not just firefighters. They're out doing that. And we want them in the building with the community to hear from folks like you guys. And we want them to talk and learn about buildings before it's on fire. And so
it's a little late.
But there's no doubt, we know that when our folks are doing their job, we prevent fires every day. Right. We have document after document where we were able to keep a fire small. The systems work, whether it was a sprinkler system or smoke detection. Because quite honestly, I'm happy as a fire chief when our fire trucks stay in quarters, right? When they don't go on calls, that's really good for our community. And so those are all the things we're always trying to push for. And that's really a big one with inspections. And we've always taken an education approach. There are times we have to be the enforcement agency.
Sure.
But I'll be quite honest. Like, I came from non-Livingston County. Our people that work here and live here are just phenomenal humans. We very rarely have to ever get into strong enforcement.
Sure.
Right? So we take an education approach. Like, hey, here's why we want your doors closed. Here's why you need to service your sprinkler system. Here's why your snow removal shouldn't block in the fire hydrants. And what can we do to fix it real quick? So
nice.
That's great.
Yeah, it's just a different world when that happens. And of course, we all know about if you get into industrial, it's a whole new world. And I guess it's interesting because, I don't know the exact size of your authority and its budget, but for a community our size, you have to be just as sophisticated for the kind of fires that we would have in industry as any other fire department in the country, because resins and you name it are used in every manufacturing process, and it really doesn't matter what size your community is, the issue is going to be the same, right?
Yeah, it does. And so we do a lot of good Livingston County is probably the best area from public safety to work in. So when we get a working fire, we automatically get the closest neighbor's first fire engine. So if you think about it, it just kind of helps round out our responses. And likewise, we give to whether it's Green Oak, whether it's
Sure.
Howell, right? We work with our neighbors in trying to really provide the best service when somebody calls 911.
Right.
And so, the fire doesn't really know where it's at, what community it's at, and that's really one of those things that we really try to work hard to keep those fires from not happening. But if they do, that's why we're here.
So how much revenue, or how big is the budget for the fire authority? What's it work out to? I don't even know. Are we paying a quarter mil, a tenth of a mil?
Yeah, no. So right now, operational. So on your winter taxes, you pay into our operation.
Sure.
And that's a 1.5 mils.
Okay.
Okay. And then in the summer, you're paying 0.89 for our capital. So that's our fire trucks and our fire stations. So, normally right now our operating budget's sitting at about $5 million.
Okay.
And the one of the best things about being a fire authority, right? Our money goes towards what we're supposed to do. And not only our staff, but our board keeps a very strong interest. We don't want to keep our taxes real high. We want to keep them and use them to get the services we need. And so one of the things that really works well is our staff is meticulous, and they do just wonderful things to make sure they're spending the taxpayer dollars right. So right now, from a fire authority standpoint, we have no debt.
Nice.
So we've completed, $9 million now in fire station renovations, no debt on those. We just opened up our Weber Road station, which if you haven't seen, if you're familiar with Weber Road, Brighton Township, behind the bowling alley.
Okay, I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah, I remember where this is. Yes.
Yeah,
okay,
so we've had a fire station there ever since we've been in fire authority. It's a brown building. It's right next door to the current one. Nobody ever knew it was there. In fact, it's the fire station that every fire chief that's ever been in charge of the fire authorities tried to replace. And it's taken us the long game to get this done, right? It's the support of the taxpayers to get that millage.
Sure.
We bought 4 or 5 acres, was 4.5 acres, and that was about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And then we've been working through, we just took occupancy. We're going to do April 4th, a ribbon cutting officially,
Nice.
but the fire trucks are in there. Go drive by it. It's the coolest looking building. But what we keep telling people is I had one requirement: no brown brick. And you guys are from the area, and everything's brown brick, right? And if you go look at it, it's got this industrial edge. It looks really cool at night, but it's the function, right? So one of the things killing firefighters is cancer, and it's in everything we do. So all of our new builds, we're really trying to keep office and living spaces clean, right? No turnout gear, no cross-contamination. And where our firefighter turnout gear is, it's a separate space. And so that building might look really cool, but from a fire chief perspective, it is everything we need to keep training and developing firefighters. There's indoor training props. They can lift, lower, raise ladders. The building is set up both inside and outside for us to simulate and go through, because training is that core root, right? We expect our staff every day to be training. And so we've got to give them the place to do that. And
That's
so
cool.
If you ever get a chance, or come on over, we'll be doing lots of community events over there. It's a beautiful building.
So speaking about things, I can remember, and it's just an interesting story. I can remember when Myers first opened in Brighton, and they went from their, I think it's 150,000, they wanted to do 220,000 square foot building. And the limiting factor was we didn't have a ladder truck that could spray water to the middle of the building, and it was held up the approval of it. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the spin was at the time that Meyer helped contribute to the cost of the fire department to help get a ladder truck because without the ladder truck, we were limiting ourselves and our ability to grow. And I'm not sure if that's all the way it went, but it's just a fascinating thing that one development could drive what ends up to be a very important instrument in fire protection. Yeah.
Well, and you can look like our ladder truck. So that one's been replaced.
I'm sure. I would hope so, because I think we've all been here longer.
Yeah. So, this is where fire authorities can work great, right?
Sure.
So we have different demands, right? When you look out in Brighton Township, we're more rural, no hydrants, right? So we have different trucks and style trucks out there. It doesn't mean that the staff won't fight a fire within the city, but this is where a fire authority works great. The ladder truck is a very important tool for structural firefighting. We have one in our whole jurisdiction, where if we were probably different, we would have multiple.
Sure.
And in this case, right, a new ladder truck's about $1 million.
I know. I
1.2
can't imagine
million.
how much they are.
Yeah. And so it's about 10 years old now, the one. But now we're actually getting taxed more and more, right? Brighton is starting to go vertical. If you really look around the city of Brighton, you're seeing more and more townhouses hitting that 3-4 story.
Right.
And so there's a lot of things affecting our staff. We've got a hospital that's going to be coming in somewhere down the road.
4 stories.
4-story.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so there's no doubt that the demand on that vehicle's going to be going up just for even simple little things. But because when you're at 3-4 stories, our fire engines don't necessarily have that equiment for us to get up that high. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It was
Very
just
interesting.
a little historical thing I remembered, Yeah. Weird, eh? So what's kind of the future right now of the Fire Authority? I mean, I'm sure you've got a board, and I know you, but like, what's your dreams? What's the dream for the authority to do?
Yeah, good question. Really coming up, I mean, there's no doubt we're going to continue to keep hiring paid-on-call firefighters. And for us, it's going to be a continual balance between on-duty staff and our on-call. And for us, we got to make sure we hit the performance goals the community expects. Are we getting fire trucks in a timely fashion when you call 911?
Sure.
And that's a big metrics for us. And part of that is support, not only in staff development, in getting in staff, it's finding grant opportunities. We are always exploring opportunities that are available to the fire department to help us fund things so we can continue to do our job. That may be equipment replacement, it may be fire stations, and it can be staff. So we have some grants out to add some staff right now.
Nice.
That we're waiting to hear where those could come in. And in the Never Ending Project, the next one is to figure out our long-term replacement plan with our downtown Grand River Road station. So we're busting at the seams there, right? When that building was made, it was one full-time person and 20 people.
Yeah.
And now that building is the hub for the entire fire authority, where we have HR, we have, admin staff, inspectors, and on-duty staff all trying to work out of there. And so the building's getting a little tired, so that's our next one. And really in the next couple of years, it's really now till we can figure out a great plan is to do that.
Having it get bigger is hard. There's no more land. You've got it all utilized, so it's like, where does it go from there?
That's right.
And up on that soil could be bad because everything goes up there, goes down because of the soft muck. But so that's tough.
Yeah, and then we're working on one last thing, and that's just to get accredited as an agency. There's a Fire Service Center for Public Safety Excellence, and for us and with staff, we want to make sure we are meeting national standards. In fact, to get accredited, you've got to crush national standards, and that's in everything from we have a current open review for our ISO rating, which affects homeowners' tax rates. And so we want to keep reducing people's cost of fire, right? There's certain things, and you pay homeowners insurance. Well, if we really do our job well and our insurance carriers follow those ratings, we can get insurance costs down. 5 years ago, we dropped it pretty significantly. And that's from our staffing, from our model, to how we respond, to our training, to our communications, all of those. So we just got reviewed about 3 months ago, and we're waiting to hear those results. We're hoping we take it down again another notch.
And that's cool because that's a payback on the investment. So if you're paying out of one pocket but getting it back in the other, it's a win, right?
Yeah,
so that's a great thing. I've always wondered, I mean, ironically, there in Genoa Township, 2 of your fire stations are within clear shot of the expressway and they can't get on. Can you negotiate with MDOT to create an entrance so you guys can get on the expressway?
I'm going to send this podcast to them, because you see them.
You look at them and go, they can't get here from there.
No, and that's right. We predominantly there's no doubt we have to worry about things going up and down our freeway, right? But our emphasis is always on our residents, and where they live, and that has been a dream of so many of ours. Can we just put that emergency entrance? Because if you ever wonder, well, where's that fire truck going because the accident's over there, that's what we have to do. So we have like an agreement with Howell Fire. So if you're eastbound 96 from Howell into Latson Road, that takes a long time for us to get there. We actually have to drive into Howell and come back.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Right? So we have good agreements with Howell. We help Howell out in one aspect. They help us out on that eastbound. And we do the same with Lyon Township. So you think about Lyon Township coming in, they can get to incidents much faster than we can on that westbound stretch up to Kensington. And then vice versa. They have a stretch up to the entrance there to Kensington that we can get to much faster than they do. So that's kind of, we really look at how can we be creative to meet the needs of our communities and what's the right thing to do. And, those are some of when I say it's a great area to work, that's the stuff that we try to tackle because it's so simple and no egos. Can we just get the right people to whatever's going on and help them out?
Well, I appreciate everything you do, Michael. The fact that all your employees live and work in the community is really significant, and that's wonderful, and I mean, thank God most of us don't have a metric of knowing if you're getting to our fires quickly. We'd all like to think we never have one. If we do, we only want to have one. We don't want to find out the next one's faster.
Yeah,
but you guys do great. We're very appreciative to have you here. I think it's great, the evolution. It sounds like it's worked really, really well, And, is there anything significant else that you could think about that you like about the community or anything? Or?
Well, there's so many great things going on, I think, within the community. I would say get downtown and eat at one of our restaurants right now.
Yeah, this next year we need to help.
Come on. And if you need to and you listen to this, park at the fire station. There's a nice Tridge. Walk
there
downtown.
You go. Yeah.
Go see it. But, we're so grateful for the community support. And anytime people have questions, please reach out. If there's something our staff can do to help, that's what we're here for. We're always hiring great men and women looking to be and help be part of the community. So you can visit our webpage for that. But, it would be remiss if the fire chief didn't say, I need you to check your smoke alarms, right? Just go home. It was daylight savings time. We hate it, but go home and check your smoke alarms because your mom wants you to.
Really good idea.
Yeah. It's a very, Yep. And if they're not working, call us, right?
Right. Well, that's the darndest thing. Yeah, that's a wonderful service. Yeah. Yep. Well, thanks so much for taking your time today. We really are grateful for all you do. And so with that, this will be another edition of The Land and Legacy by Griffith Realty.